Welcome back to the I Don't Want a Divorce podcast, where I do my best to empower those in a marital crisis and to help them save their marriages. My tough love principles empower the person who's the victim of the crisis, who's trying to save the marriage, but at the same time, it also may just shake up the sinning spouse and save the marriage. And if you've gone through a divorce, many of you have, you know many people who have, I'll help you heal from that trauma and build a new life. That's what my new book is about. I didn't want a divorce. Now what? Many in the Christian community shrink away from those who are divorced. And not that they're blaming them or there's bad feelings often, but just they don't know what to say, what to do. Well, I do. There has to be recovery from this trauma. In fact, my current podcast series is based on this I Didn't Want a Divorce, Now What book. You can get this book and all my books on marital crisis. And I've got a book, you name the marital crisis, I've got a book for it. On my website, you can access my podcast, my YouTube channel, all through the website, and my phone advice service. On my website, davideclarkephd.com. That's Clarke with an E. And help us make a difference in the lives of hurting people by subscribing to my podcast, sharing the podcast with others, and leaving a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. The way the digital world works, I'm told by Phil Dugas of Dugas Creative, my producer, one of my favorite son-in-laws. I almost said my favorite son-in-law. Caught myself. Anyway, that this is how the digital world works. You've got the reviews, the ratings are important. And of course, subscribers. So if you can help us. We're not doing this to make a fortune. We're just trying to help people and save marriages and help those who are recovering from divorce. Now, before I cover today's topic, which is how to forgive in the process of divorce recovery, I want to announce a brand new contest. A while back, if you remember, we did a contest and asked for the best lame excuses to end a marriage. We had a great response to this, and so we're going to do another contest. In this new contest, I'm looking for the best answers to this statement. You might be married to a narcissist if he, or frankly, if she, and then fill in the blank. So you might be married to a narcissist if he or she, fill in the blank. And of course, you fill the blank in with whatever stupid, nasty, abusive thing the narcissist said or did. Email your answers to this question to me directly at davideclarkephd, that's Clarke with an E, davideclarkephd at gmail.com. Deadline for entries is August 31st, of course, 2021. That's a few weeks from now. You've got a couple of weeks. I will choose the top 10 best answers along with my team here. Phil Dugas, Nancy Dugas, my wonderful wife, Sandy Clarke. The winners will receive a free Enough is Enough book, my book on abusive relationships, all right, which covers narcissism in detail. And that's not all. You will also receive another one of my books for free. You go to the website, you can pick any other book for free. So that's 2 free books you're going to get if you're a winner. And of course, all the books are on the website. I'll email you. If you're a winner, I will email you and ask for your address. Okay, so we can send the books to you. And of course, I'll ask for the second book that you want to choose. And my trusted office manager, the blonde, my wife Sandy, will send those books to you. That is not my department. I do not go to the post office. Oh, that's her job. I keep telling her, honey, that's your job. I'm also planning on doing a series of podcasts based on the responses that we get. Okay, today's topic in my Recovery from Divorce podcast series is How to Forgive Part 1. Forgiveness is a very important part of the healing and recovery process from divorce. Divorce is one of the most devastating experiences that can happen in a person's life. It is a severe trauma. There is no question that you have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Society says, oh, divorce, no big deal. And even many in the church, oh, well, these things happen, move on. You know what? Wrong. No such thing as an amicable divorce. They're always awful. It's the death of a marriage. It's the death of a family. Yes, it does hurt the kids. You'll recover and move on. That's why I wrote this book. I didn't want a divorce, now what? But it is traumatic. Healing from the trauma of your divorce is all about forgiveness. You have to forgive all those who wounded you in the divorce. And it's not just your ex. Obviously, he or she's top of the list. There are others. And because your divorce has energized all your past unresolved pain, that's how trauma works. The current trauma, which is the divorce, will energize all your unresolved traumas in the past. And so we have to heal from those too. And that's what we're going to do. God wants to use your divorce recovery to catch you up to the present, cleaning out all the major unresolved pain in your life. Now, I talked briefly about forgiveness in a previous podcast. I made it clear that righteous anger is the first step in the process. Well, that's true. In the next few podcasts, I'll guide you through the entire process of forgiveness. It'll be 4 or 5 podcasts based on forgiveness and how to. Let's talk about the church and forgiveness a bit here. Many pastors, Christian counselors, and Christian leaders do not understand forgiveness. Well-meaning, yes. Godly, yes. Trying to help, no question, but they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to forgiveness. The traditional and most popular Christian advice for forgiveness goes just like this. And many of you understand this because you've heard this from pastors and Christian counselors or helpful people in the church. Here's what they say, and this is with a straight face. They're serious. Make the choice right now to forgive the person who harmed you. That's it. That is the full extent of their teaching on forgiveness. There's just one problem with this advice. It doesn't work. It has never worked. Though millions have tried it, it won't work for you either. I see scores of people every month who come into my office, or I talk to through my phone advice service over the phone from all parts of the country and even international countries, foreign countries, who have tried this classic Christian approach, and of course they haven't forgiven, they're still hurting, and now they got to do it the right way. I heard this well-known Christian author on the radio one time. You'd know his name if I told you. I'm not going to do that. Not throwing any stones here. Actually, I am. I'm not going to mention names. Wonderful man, godly man, great ministry. I'm listening on the radio, and he actually told people on the radio, and of course the host, that when he sees a person that comes into his office for the first time, never met him before, whatever their trauma, whatever the issue of forgiveness is, by the end of that hour, he is convinced that they will have completely forgiven and completely recovered from the trauma. Well, that's simply not true. I was in my car listening, yelling, that's not true. That's true. I don't even have a job. That's not how God works. I wish he did. God could certainly do it that way. He does not do it that way. There's a process. I've been helping people forgive for 35 years. I know how you forgive someone who has deeply wounded you, and it's not pretty. It's ugly. It's hard, but it works. So in these next podcasts, I'm going to help you forgive everyone who has wounded you. In the divorce process, of course, we start with that, and then in your entire life. Here's my definition of forgiveness, and frankly, I'm pretty proud of it. I was on the Janet Parshall show, In the Market with Janet Parshall, just this last week, and I gave this definition on the air. In fact, you can listen to my past shows with Janet by going to In the Market with Janet Parshall. I believe it's .org, and you can hear those shows. But anyway, here's my definition of forgiveness. The difficult process by which, with God's power, you heal from the wounds a person inflicted on you and leave those wounds in the past. The difficult process by which, with God's power, you heal from the wounds a person inflicted on you and leave those wounds in the past. Let me walk you through the parts of this definition. First, difficult. It is brutal, messy, and awful work. It is never easy. Don't ever think it's going to be easy, because it's not. When you hear testimonies in church from really well-meaning people, this is after the fact, and they talk about forgiving it, it seems like it was easy. It was not easy. Second, it's a process. It takes time and huge effort. Check out the Psalms of David and the book of Job. Again, many Christians, including Christian leaders and pastors and even Christian counselors, biblical counselors, think forgiveness should be quick and it should be easy and just rely upon God. Of course, God does it, but you've got to do your work too. Can you quickly forgive your ex for all the damage and pain he caused you? No, you cannot. I've seen many clients in person and by phone who tried to forgive an ex, who gouged them, who ended their marriage, who hurt their kids, who destroyed them financially, who humiliated them. Tried to forgive quickly with the help of a well-meaning Christian person, and of course it didn't work. God gets what he wants through the process. He can heal you just like that. He doesn't do that. He wants maturity. He wants you to grow as a person and grow closer to him and learn things. Next part of the definition, of course, very important. With God's power, you can't forgive anyone in your own power. Don't even bother trying. You forgive only with God's power. Heal from the wounds. You face the trauma directly and take specific steps to deal with it. You got to do the work. And also, I say a person inflicted on you. You always forgive a person, not a group of persons or a situation, and you forgive one person at a time. I have clients do a lot of writing, and sometimes if I'm having them deal with their parents, I say write a letter to dad and a separate letter to mom. Well, some won't do that. They'll come in with a letter to both of their parents. They're trying to dilute the process. Dear dad and mom. No. No, they'll have to redo it. Specific, one person at a time. You've heard the saying, hate the sin, but not the sinner. No, wrong. It's okay as part of the process to hate the sinner. You're furious. You're upset. You're in a rage at that person. That's biblical. Check out King David in the Psalms. No question about it. Now that's not gonna last. But yes, it's directed at the person it should be, because that's the one that hurt you. Leave these wounds in the past. Based on the hard work you've done, you consciously decide to move on and not allow the wounds to impact your life. Because you've done the work, you can move on. Now, there are 3 critical elements in true forgiveness. And by the way, I'm covering this at 10,000 feet. You want the entire picture, step by step, with every detail of the divorce recovery process. Okay, you need to get the book, I Didn't Want a Divorce, Now What? It's an ebook as well as a print version. And I think the print version is better because it's a manual and you really have to go over and over. You're in the middle of a trauma and you have to have the specific steps, I think, spelled out. Okay, 3 elements in true forgiveness. There is an intellectual piece. You choose to do the hard work to forgive the person who wounded you. Okay, you don't choose to forgive. You choose to do the hard work to forgive. There's a key difference there. Emotional. You do the work of healing from the trauma. And I want to tell you right now, I want you to avoid any spiritual or psychological method that promises quick forgiveness, like that well-meaning Christian author on the radio. That's bogus. Well-meaning, yeah, but bogus. If only we could have instant forgiveness. The bestsellers these days are about 1 week to this and 1 week to that and 1 month to, stop a habit. That's ridiculous. It takes weeks and months of hard work when the trauma is deep, and divorce trauma is deep. It affects every area of your life. When your refrigerator breaks, yeah, that's upsetting. You buy a new one. No, who cares? That's not true of losing a marriage. So many things are affected for the rest of your life. So be wary of any of these accelerated therapies that even Christian therapists are using. Well-meaning people. I am not a fan of that because there's a process to follow. And the Bible supports me on that. There is a process of healing. Even David in the Psalms, there's a process. He starts off, why God? Can't believe. Raw pain. What's happening here? I hate my enemies. Life is awful. I'm in the middle of a crisis. And through the course of the Psalm process, could be hours, could be weeks, more like months, some Psalms, years, he works through the process, heals, reconnects to God. You see, process. Read the book of Job if you can stand it. Chapter after chapter after chapter, one of the longest books in the Bible, Job went through a process. So intellectual, emotional, and then of course spiritual, no question. God enables you to do the work and release the pain caused by the person. I'll mention another very well-known Christian author. You'd know his name instantly if I mention it to you. I'm not going to do that. Wrote a book several years ago about forgiveness. And I read that book. I thought, well, maybe I'll get some insights on how to forgive that I don't know. Well, it was a waste of time. I didn't reach out to him. I wanted to say, what are you doing? This book's crazy. Anyway, his basic approach was the standard Christian approach. 200 pages of you simply decide to forgive the person, say a quick prayer, and you're done. And then he had to add over and over, page after page, every day. You have to keep saying, I forgive, choose to forgive, choose to forgive. Well, you know what? No, that's not how forgiveness works. And also, if you have to keep on choosing to forgive every day the rest of your life, you're never going to forgive. That's not true forgiveness. Now, there was release and reconciliation forgiveness. Now, I'm only focusing in this book, I Didn't Want a Divorce, Now What? And in this podcast series based on the book on release forgiveness. Release forgiveness is a one-way process that does not involve the person who wounded you. You're going to deal direct with your ex, for example, and others that harmed you in the process of divorce, but you're never going to go near them. Their input is not required. You can completely forgive someone without mentioning to that person anything about the work you did to forgive him. You'll vent, you'll write letters to that person, you won't send them, they'll never know, but that's release forgiveness. Their participation is not required. Now, reconciliation forgiveness is what I do when I'm seeing a couple who want to save their marriage. That's a two-way process. that requires a healthy, honest response from the person who wounded you. To reconcile, the other person must admit fault, ask for your forgiveness, and be willing to help you heal from the wounds he inflicted on you. When I'm working a couple through adultery, let's say the husband's committed adultery, emotional or physical adultery, about the same thing in God's eyes. There is a process that takes several months. All told, it'll take them a year, but I work with them 3-4 months, and there's a process. There are steps to take, but it's reconciliation. And the person that committed the adultery has to be kind and patient and help the partner heal who he damaged so severely. Now, there may be a few persons, not your ex probably, with whom God directs you to attempt reconciliation forgiveness. There won't be many, if any, and you have to first accomplish release forgiveness anyway. All right, that's a good place to stop. So I'm going to stop right there. And we're going to pick this up in the next podcast, which is going to be How to Forgive Part 2. All right? And then the next 3-4 podcasts after that are going to be a specific steps in the forgiveness process. So until next time, Dr. David E. Clarke, Clarke with an E, PhD. I almost said .com. It is davideclarkephd.com. That's my website. But I will see you next time.